a long time to get things going, but it's got some incredible features like this.
Oh, there y'all are.
Here we go. What's going on, Texas? It's Tuesday night. Time to start talking some football. Coming to you live from the Sam Goody Studios in Central Park Mall, because you know Goody's got it. It's SAJ in the house. Over here to my right, whatever, somewhere, is our special guest, the mariachi of San Antonio, the one, the only, Viva Texas.
That's right. I'm coming to you live from El Chapo's safe house down in the Texas-Mexico border at an undisclosed location. Hence why I'm wearing the wrong kind of football shirt. I saw the intro and I was like, oops, I'm wearing the wrong kind of football shirt.
Oh, crap. What are we talking about here?
I'm talking about English football, isn't it?
Yeah. We could give a little shout out to SAFC a little bit later on. Valiant game they played this weekend, didn't get the win, but we still deserve the title of SAFC. I don't care what those English people say. They lost a war 3 times, and we won. So we got the right. Below me, of course, is no explanation needed, but go ahead and introduce.
What's up? No explanation needed, but here's the explanation. What's up, everybody? You know me, I'm BD.
Looks like we're having
practice, so
there we go.
Yeah, we're having all kinds of buffering issues and technology problems.
Yeah, the hamsters running the internet in Cibolo Shirts area are going a little slow today. So
definitely. So obviously we missed last week, guys. We missed you. Sorry that we were not able to broadcast. We had a couple of personal issues going on and a little bit of case of the lazy behind. So just couldn't really get to it. But we've got a lot to talk about tonight. And definitely we wanted to make sure we included Jorge because there's a lot going on in football here in Texas. Preseason is just right around the corner in the NFL. There's a lot of excitement. I know we've got our eyes on a certain someone from the San Antonio Brahmas. And we even have some updates about some USFL players that are potentially making, one USFL player making a splash in the NFL. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. But first, there is some major news coming out of arena football. For those who hopefully saw the announcement today, the AFL is back. Jorge, I know you've got a little bit of experience with the AFL.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, once upon a time, about 10, well, no, it's 2023 now, 11 years ago, I was getting ready to try out for the Utah Blaze of the old AFL, only to find out that they were folding when I was going to go try out. So I was going to take my Talons to San Antonio and try out for the Talons, and then the whole league folded. So that never happened, but it's good to see. I think, there's a resurgence of alternative football coming back, and I like it, but I'm starting to feel like there's a little bit of a diluting of the pool here with so many leagues. I think there's a lot of nostalgia coming back, between the USFL, the XFL, AFL, it's nice to see it coming back, but I do think that the room's starting to get a little bit crowded for alternative football. You can only have so many feeders into the NFL.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Definitely.
The one thing we have talked about on the show before is the structure that the really that Dwayne Johnson has kind of helped promote to make happen, right? We know that the XFL is an official partner of the IFL, and the XFL is an official partner of the NFL, right? So for players that need that development and they need those extra, couple of snaps and just some extra guidance and tutelage to get into the NFL, they have a fairly clear path. It's going to require a lot of hard work, a lot of effort, a lot of staying late because there's going to be, 200 other guys that are chomping at the bit trying to do the same thing.
Right.
But there is a clear-cut path to, if you come out of college and you go undrafted, maybe you can get picked up in the XFL. That doesn't work out, there's always the IFL. Granted, it's a different game. We've talked about that on previous shows before, but there's still a chance to sharpen your skills and to get a little bit better and have that clear-cut path to maybe get back into the XFL and then maybe get into the NFL, right? Because that's what every player's dream is. One day, walk out on a professional field somewhere and hear 65,000 plus people either cheering your name or cursing the ground you walk on. That's what it's all about, right? And every one of us can attest to that dream. Some obviously have gone a little bit farther than others, but that's what every little boy's dream is to one day be a pro ball player. And really, it's not even just American football. I mean, there's kids across the world that want to have that same reputation in professional soccer or rugby or like you name it, right? There's a professional sport that some kid wants to get into somewhere, and they're having those exact same dreams. So, with that being the case, we've talked about the AFL coming back. We know that there are going to be 16 teams, and some of these are going to be surprising, some of them not so much. But I think it's worth talking about that. We cover some of. I'm trying to pull up notes in case you guys are wondering. I'm stalling for time. But the teams that they've announced, we actually talked about it a little bit in one of our XFL fan groups. The teams that they announced are, where is it? I see a bunch about jerseys. I think I may have passed it up. Anyways, there's what, 16 teams?
Look, you texted it to me. So look at the text you sent me.
I have the list here. So it is Austin, Boise.
Look at the guy come prepared.
California, that will play in Bakersfield, California. Chicago, Colorado, which will play in Denver. Minnesota, which will play in St. Paul, Louisiana, from Lake Charles. Ohio, out of Cincinnati. Orlando, Oregon, playing out of Salem. Philadelphia, St. Louis, Tallahassee. Tennessee, which will be out of Nashville. Washington, which will play out of Everett, Washington. And West Texas, which will play out of Odessa, which I think is probably the most interesting one to be in this group. Because when you have cities like Denver and Chicago and Orlando and Philadelphia, I can't imagine people wanting to be like, I want to play for Odessa.
Yeah. And I mean, is this going to be the Warbirds making a move over? Because
it is. It's already been confirmed. The Warbirds from the National Arena League are going to be the ones that are going to be moving to the AFL. So they will no longer be in the National Arena League like they currently are, and they will be moving over to the Arena Football League once that starts up. So definitely questions linger for the National Arena League, only because I don't know that they have very many teams left to form a full season anymore.
They don't, in fact, and I'm glad you brought that up, because earlier you mentioned that Orlando is going to have a team in the AFL. That's going to be the Orlando Predators from the National Arena League. So with Orlando leaving, with West Texas leaving, with Fayetteville and Albany folding, that leaves 3 teams left in the NAL. And that is going to be the Jacksonville Sharks, which is an original AFL team, the Carolina Cobras.
Which is surprising that the Jacksonville didn't get picked for the AFL this time.
Well, and we don't know. I mean, there could be plans for expansion later, or they could be making a move into maybe the IFL, right? But you've got Jacksonville, you've got Carolina, and you've got San Antonio that are going to be left in the NAL. That's obviously not enough. And I don't see them being able to scramble and get enough kind of traction and popularity, because they expanded this year to 7 teams. They were 6 teams last year. And we watched every game they played, right? We watched Austin, who didn't even have a home stadium. You know, they never played a single home game their first season in the NAL. They were all over the place. It was just a big hot mess. I mean, I hate to take shots, but it was just a big hot mess. Then it looked like this last year, when they finally got to the Freeman Coliseum, it was kind of like the NAL was starting to get their act together and started looking like a professional organization. Things were looking better. Then this year happens. Antonio Brown, not only did his anti-Midas touch curse Albany, it doomed the whole league, it seems like.
I mean, his touch was so
Right?
bad, it went all the way down to
I've talked about it. Yeah. Brian and I have talked about it before. Attendance at the Gunslingers games, while the games themselves are entertaining for a certain crowd, those crowds are not very large. So I have a feeling that pretty much every team in the NAL is going to find another home for the most part, and the NAL is going to fall apart, and San Antonio probably isn't going to make that transition into another league. But we don't actually know anything. We don't have an inside source or anything like that, right? So we're not claiming that we know exactly what's going on. We're simply fans speculating on, what we see. But from what we've seen, right, Freeman Coliseum holds like what, 10,000 give or take, and they're maybe getting 1,500 a game. It's going to be kind of hard to finance a team that way. So that being the case, though, one other thing that surprised me is that I didn't hear 2 specific names from the IFL being called into the new AFL. And that's going to be the Iowa Barnstormers and the Arizona Rattlers, which are both IFL teams, right? Kurt Warner, in fact, came from Iowa. So really surprising that they didn't get called up. So I'm wondering if maybe they're planning on grabbing them next year, like an expansion bid or something like that. That'll be very interesting to watch and see what happens. But that being the case, teams are falling by the wayside in the NAL. Yeah. Speaking of things falling by the wayside, apparently San Antonio's lead in the NAL has fallen by the wayside. They have now dropped.
It's not fall. It's fell. It fell. It's gone.
It done fell. San Antonio is on a 2-game losing streak. Jorge, I know you've been involved with the Gunslingers very early on in the season, and don't really follow it so much, and that's cool. But San Antonio's on a 2-game losing streak. They were on such a hot streak the whole first part of the season, right?
Were.
Yep.
Brian and I speculated about it. We thought there was potentially an issue with their starting quarterback. His throws, as he progressed in the game, his throws were becoming less and less accurate. They were becoming more and more like wounded ducks than tight spirals. And so I think that finally is caught up. And so now they brought back Robert Kent from last season, and Kent is good, but apparently not good enough, right? So we're going to break down last week.
I mean, he didn't play at all this last game.
So we're going to break down the scores from week 14 and 15 real quick, right? Jacksonville Sharks stomped Orlando Predators 67-44. We pretty much knew that was going to happen. And then Carolina Cobras actually beat they beat the West Texas Warbirds. So that's 1 and 2, basically, that stumped on, so to speak. West Texas has been struggling. So fingers crossed, man. If they take the same team into the AFL, they're going to be beat up a lot, and it's going to be bad.
Yeah.
Moving on, then you have Orlando at Jacksonville, and Orlando lost again. But I think they forgot to show up for the game because the score was 56-24. I think you get like 20 points just for showing up. So yeah, apparently Orlando forgot that they were there to play a football game. And then
It happened with Orlando teams, it seems like.
Yeah. And then our friends at the San Antonio Gunslingers, I got a feeling that they put it on autopilot, man, because they lost to the Carolina Cobras 66-43. And I say that they put it on autopilot because if you go back and look at their season, they have not had a super, super dominant win. The last game against the West Texas Warbirds, they won 55-49, right? We were there at that game. It was not that commanding of a win. They did not look super, super sharp. They looked good, but not as sharp as they did when they first started out. I get it. It's a long season. It's a 17-week season. There's a lot of games, and you're playing a lot of the teams twice, sometimes 3 times in the case of West Texas. But that fatigue cannot be an excuse. You know, they're looking rough. They're looking haggard. Again, we talked about it. Let me see what the standings are. So again, Jacksonville's on top. They've played 11 games. They're 9-2. San Antonio has played 11 games. They're 8-3. Now Carolina has played 12 games somehow, and they're at 8-4. And that's the only reason why they're in third place. The next closest team is the defunct Fayetteville Mustangs at 4-4. They're not even playing, and they're still in fourth place. Okay. And then you have the Orlando Predators at 4-7, West Texas Warbirds at 2-10. See what I mean about them? They need to be careful moving into the AFL. It's going to be dicey. And then of course you have Albany Empire at 1-6. They completed 7 games out of the entire season. And then our good friend AB put his anti-Midas touch on it and killed everything. So that's kind of where we're at with the NAL. And don't get me wrong, they're a great group of guys. You know, I love some of the players on the San Antonio team. They have connections all the way back to the San Antonio Talents team with Fred Shaw and Pierre Garcon. I believe the assistant coach has some connection with them, and then the coach that was prior to Flint's players as well, right? So they've got connections to the city. But to see kind of, you know, the polish fall off and the rust start showing underneath the paint job, it's getting a little bit scary. So I've got a sneaking suspicion. San Antonio has one more game. Everybody has one more game this last week. We're actually going to be playing the Carolina Cobras at home. I'm sorry, there's 2 more weeks left. Carolina Cobras at home. We just lost to the Carolina Cobras. Hopefully San Antonio can get this win at home, turn the season around. Not that, you know, they're in jeopardy of coming in last place or anything, but they could struggle to make it into the playoffs. And with the 7-team structure, we don't even know what the playoffs look like.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's hard to say because, I mean, what was planned at the beginning of the season no longer is applicable because teams have folded. Antonio Brown.
Yep.
And yeah, I mean, they're gonna have to scramble on the fly to see what's going on. And I mean, honestly, you know, with this being Texans talking football, I want to focus on the Texas teams here for a second. But obviously, we know what's going to happen to the West Texas Warbirds. They're going to the Arena Football League, so they're going to, you know, have a second life. But the San Antonio Gunslingers, I don't really know if they are going to have a life after the AFL launches, only because, like you said, there's going to be 3 teams left in the league. And there's a lot of competition football wise in San Antonio already. And it's not just I'm not just talking about XFL. I'm talking about sports in general. So you have the UTSA obviously has been on a dominant streak for the past 2 seasons, and they're now moving up to a much larger and more powerful conference. You have the Spurs, who just drafted the hottest draft pick since LeBron James, if you want to go that far, people are going to start buying tickets to the Spurs again, spending their money there. You have the Brahmas from the XFL who are coming back. Then not to mention all of the local families that spend money on tickets, concessions, travels, boosters for high school football. So there's a lot of competition for a limited amount of funds. And so with the league that is at 3 teams right now, I don't know that there will be, the future looks a little bit dim for the San Antonio Gunslingers. I hope they pull it out. I hope they find a home, whether that be in the IFL or whether that be in another league. But as of right now, I think they're going to be one of the teams that kind of gets the short end of the stick here. Not getting the invite to the Arena Football League, and Austin getting the Arena Football League team instead, which makes sense given their history that they had the Austin Wranglers back in the original iteration of the Arena Football League. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm pulling for the Gunslingers. I'd love to, always love to see more football in San Antonio, but like I mentioned at the start of the show, the room's starting to get crowded for football teams. And even in the largest of cities, there's only so much that can go around before people either start getting football fatigue or are spending their money elsewhere where they think they're getting more bang for their buck. In this case, I think the Spurs, because of Wemby.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, 100%. Spurs are going to have a big impact on every other sporting team that's in the city, whether it be the Brahmas, the Gunslingers, the Missions, SAFC, you name it, right? Every team is going to struggle because everybody wants to see Wemby now, and so those ticket prices are going to be going up. Attendance is going to be going up. People are going to be fighting for limited space, and I fingers crossed. I hope it works out well for the Spurs. We've talked about it before. One of the reasons why we have a show about football is because I love football. I love the San Antonio Spurs as an organization, as a team, what it means to the city and everything. But the sport itself, it's not for me. It's not for a guy like me that has, is basically on the edge of his seat, all the time anyways, right? Spurs basketball has traditionally been very phenomenal, very technical, very structured, very specific game plan. You don't have a lot of hotheads. You don't have a lot of show-offs necessarily. It's just very good, fundamental, basic basketball. And so adding a guy like Wemby to that organization, I think it's going to be great for the team. I think it's going to elevate their level of play, to pretty much competition level, like finals type competition in a very, very short time.
Right.
But I don't really care. So, but I will say Brian definitely shares your sentiment. He's a Spurs fan. He's also an Aggie though. So
that's right. Gig 'em.
Yeah. But so yeah, there's some interesting and probably going to be some dismal news coming from the NAL once the season completes. Now, let's kick over to the IFL because pretty much last week was a lot more for show than anything. I mean, the playoff picture was pretty much determined in week 17. We got 1 week, but week 17, you had some typical close games and some typical blowouts. Iowa, of course, took care of Sioux Falls. Brian's Quad City Steamwheelers took care of my Green Bay Blizzard, and it was a close game, but it wasn't very entertaining. I mean, 47-39, that's a low scoring arena game. Tucson defeated
one of
Duke
those
City.
rare defensive arena struggles.
Well, there have been a couple of them actually. So ironically enough, Massachusetts, who's had an incredible team the second half of this season, they lost to North Arizona Wranglers, which is kind of a surprise, but the score was 37-32. That's a good NFL game. That's not an arena game.
Yep.
That's really, really low. Here, This last one, Monday, July 10th, that's an arena game. The San Diego Strike Force lost to the Bay Area Panthers 40. Brian, make sure you're concentrating on your driving so you don't lose control here. To 75. That's an
Holy
arena
crap.
game. That's an arena
There
game.
you go.
And that's got to be the highest scoring game of the season so far in the IFL. But pretty much everything was clinched in week 17. Week 18, of course, you know, we were rooting for Frisco Fighters because they are a Texas team. What's up, Marcos? Throw this comment up here. Horns forward, baby. That's one of our Brahma loyal from the San Antonio Brahmas XFL fan page and fan club. But again, we're pulling for Frisco because it's a Texas team. They beat Iowa 51-35, which is kind of surprising because Iowa's always usually put up a pretty good fight. They hadn't really let me down this season so far, and you know they're repping the old AFL teams, but they did not show up, right? And so you know our new friend Jimmy, who's moved down here from the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and happens to be a Renegades fan. Well, he's also a Frisco Fighters fan, and so he's loving what's going on with Frisco. Oh yeah. So, Massachusetts Pirates, they lost 59-62 to Sioux Falls. Pile at Tulsa, they lost 35-56. Vegas Nighthawks lost 42-58 against the San Diego Strike Force. Brian is opening up his chips at this moment.
I like how you're just reading off people who lost, not who won.
Yes. Well, because I like to mix it up. I like to give people hope and then destroy that hope. Tucson Sugar Skulls won 48-39 against Green Bay. Green Bay has just really fallen apart the last half of the season. They were about middle of the pack and then just nosedived. So poor Green Bay. And I want to say that Gilbert Brown is involved in that organization. So, or was at some point. I know he was the head coach of the lingerie football team that Green Bay had. And then I think when
why am I not surprised?
Yeah, go figure, right? But they were importing women. You know they weren't bringing them from there, right? And as a former Wisconsin native, I can say that. But yeah, I think Gilbert Brown is involved in this organization. I think he's the head coach or something. I'd have to go back and confirm that. But I know he was involved at some point. So Arizona Rattlers, they had a week off last week too. They've already clinched, so they're in the playoffs for sure. They played Northern Arizona and beat them 55-39. And then the Bay Area Panthers beat Duke City 44-35. So you've got 4 games this next week, weekend, and they're really all kind of pointless, right? Quad Cities at Frisco Fighters, Massachusetts at Sioux Falls Storm, Northern Arizona at Arizona again, and then Tucson Sugar Skulls at Bay Area Panthers. And so what we're looking at here, Frisco Fighters in the East have clinched first place. Storm has clinched second. Massachusetts has clinched third. Quad City has clinched fourth. You know what? Actually, I was a little bit wrong. So looking at the stats, this next week's games do matter for the final. I mean, these teams are in the playoffs, but these next games do matter because Sioux Falls, Massachusetts, and Quad City are all tied at 9-6, but it's their conference records that are keeping them, kind of separated. And then back over in the West, Arizona, Bay Area, Tucson, and Northern Arizona, 1, 2, 3, and 4. There's a little bit of wiggle room there between Bay Area and Tucson, but Arizona's at 11-4, and I very seriously don't see them losing. So they're definitely in the playoffs. But that's what your playoff schedule is pretty much going to look like. Now, again, what their playoff structure is going to look like, I'm not sure. I don't know if, it's going to be like an elimination type thing where one plays 4-3, and then they go into the championship game or something like that. The conference championships and then the final. That I'm not sure. Again, this is our kind of first exposure to the IFL. but it looks like a pretty strong organization. I mean, it has a lot of that old AFL feel. So that's going to be really interesting.
just by the number of teams in the playoffs, I would assume it would be 1 versus 4, 2 versus 3, and then the winners play each other, and then the championship. So it's no buys, nothing like that.
Yeah.
That would be my assumption.
And that would probably be a safe assumption. Again, I mean, the one thing I absolutely love about the IFL and their website is that everything is just right there for you to find. You don't have to look far. You don't have to look deep. Everything is right there, except for the playoff structure. But I'm sure that's probably going to be coming next week, hopefully. That's one of the things that Brian and I, Jorge, that's one of the things that Brian and I have talked about, comparing the IFL to the NAL. The NAL website looks like something that probably I designed, and the IFL would be more professional level, like on your level. So,
well, thank you.
I think I saw some.
I think my MySpace page in 2002 looks better than the NAL page.
Well, but I mean, you had some creativity with MySpace, so that's not a fair comparison.
Also, I mean, funding, it all comes down to who has the deeper pockets. Because, being a web developer myself, a good website is not cheap, and a cheap website is not good. So you kind of get to see a little bit of that just based off of how people present themselves, which is why it's super important to make sure you have a presentable and functional website that looks good, because it like you just showed, it sends off a good or bad first impression, depending on how it's laid out and structured. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in Arena League right now. And then, we're a little over a month away from the start of Texas high school football. They're actually starting. I mean, for me, the date is early, maybe just because the way the calendar falls. But all schools and 5 and 6A schools without spring training, their first day of conditioning is July 31st. I never remember starting in July. I don't know if they do 2-a-days or not anymore. But
they do, from what I've heard from, I wish Coach was on here because he can definitely talk about it. So Coach is a recent Judson ISD parolee and the football team there. And so he could definitely, confirm this better than I could. But I'm pretty sure that they were still doing 2-a-days. It's just, first practice is at like 5 or 6 in the morning, and second practice is at like 6 o'clock at night, right? Just to make sure that you're not, just gassing the kids. But probably the first week or so, they're probably only doing 1-a-days, just because it's so hot out there.
That's so nice of them. Because I remember when I was playing high school ball, first practice, we report at 6 a.m. Practice was from 8 to 10, right during the most humid part of the morning. Second practice was from 3 to 5, because men, that's what men do, is push their kids to heat exhaustion, which we had a lot of that. So I'm glad that they're changing it up and protecting the kids, if they're taking the heat into consideration. But yeah, I mean, with the way this summer has been, it's been absolutely brutal. It doesn't look like it's going to be letting up. And so, best of luck and hope all the kids out there that are going into high school football season starting July 31st, it's just conditioning, no contact permitted other than helmets, but no contact. But it does take, a week at least to get acclimated to the heat, especially if you've not been training in the heat specifically for it. So I don't miss those 2 o'clock in the afternoon runs in June and July to get ready for 2-a-days.
Yep.
But yeah, no, I mean, it's exciting to see, what's coming down the pipeline. Like, it's once you hear the drum line start practicing and you hear the marching band start going, that means, Summer's over, unfortunately, but it's now getting into football season. Between college, high school, and NFL, this is the meat and potatoes of the year for a lot of people who like football. And the nice thing is that this year there's no World Cup in the way to distract a good chunk of the audience, because that's what happened to me last year. I got sucked in by the World Cup, and then when I came back to watch football, I was like, I have no idea what's going on, and I just gave up on it.
Yeah. So as we're talking about, making this transition, it's also important to talk about players that are making transitions into other leagues, higher levels of competition, things like that. We've talked multiple times here about all the XFL players. And I think the last count was, if not 100, really close to it, XFL players that were getting tryouts in the NFL. Now, again, those are tryouts. It doesn't necessarily mean a signed contract or anything, but that's 100 individuals that's produced that are pretty much NFL caliber players ready to go, right, that are ready to compete for a position on a roster. Flip the script, and it's no secret that Texans Talking Football, we support the Houston Gamblers and the USFL and everything because they're a Houston team, but the organization as a whole, we have to. I mean, they're Texans. We got to support them, right? And especially in the organization that they're in, they need as much love as they can get because they don't have any fans in the stands whatsoever. And I bet they haven't sold a single jersey. But looking at the news today, there's mention of one player from the USFL that's getting a tryout with an NFL team. Did you see anything about this?
I saw it was a quarterback going to the Packers.
Yes, sir.
For the Packers, which is interesting. I'm glad to see that they're, obviously Jordan Love has some gigantic shoes to fill in Green Bay, and who knows if it's going to work out. But who knows? We might get the next Kurt Warner from this USFL person going to the Packers today.
Yeah, we potentially could. So this is Alex Magoo, who's the quarterback of the Birmingham Stallions.
USFL MVP.
Yeah, USFL MVP. Good football knowledge. I'm a little worried. I mean, considering his competition, they're all going to be kind of at about the same level. Jordan Love obviously has one step above everybody, but there's no guarantee. I mean, Alex Magoo may come in, and I hate his name because it looks like Magaw, and everybody called him Magoo, and I called him Magaw for the longest time until I heard an announcer actually say his name, and so I felt like a fool. But that's okay. That's what happens in journalism, right?
Right.
But there is a very good chance that he could make a roster somewhere as a backup quarterback, potentially even maybe as a starter, depending on if somebody's hurting bad enough or not. Right. In Green Bay, I will tell you, I've been watching the rosters. I know who's on the 90-man roster right now, and the two quarterbacks that are below Jordan Love are about the same level as Alex Magoo. So it's really going to come down to these combines and training camps and see who really wants it bad enough. And if they work hard enough, they may even be able to bump Love out,
Yeah,
we'll see what happens.
So a little bit about Magoo is, he was originally drafted by the Seattle Seahawks out of FIU back in 2018. He's had some NFL time with the Jags and the Texans. And the pandemic obviously threw his career off track. And from my understanding of Magoo is if you want to have a comparison of what he looks like, is you want to think Johnny Manziel, which is, and I don't mean like off the field Johnny Manziel party time. I'm talking about like on the field and how he plays, where he's got a little bit of flash in the pocket, but where he really excels is tucking the football and running with it, which is concerning because running quarterbacks do not have they have a shorter lifespan than a running back does in the NFL. But I mean, if you look at Green Bay's quarterback roster right now, outside of Jordan Love, they have a rookie in Sean Clifford, and then Danny Etling, who used to be a receiver in the NFL and is being put at quarterback for the Packers as QB3. And that they also don't have any cap space. So Green Bay's hurting for some backups at the quarterback position. Aaron Rodgers obviously left a giant crater, but they do need to have a QB2 and a QB3. But I kind of see Magoo taking on the role of what you saw Taysom Hill do in New Orleans, where he can be a quarterback, but he's going to be that special weapon threat that you'll only use on certain situations. But he won't ever be a good starting quarterback if he relies too much on his legs, because he's going to get just blown up by some middle linebacker who's just as fast as he is.
Yeah, and there's some beasts out there waiting to make some hits. So it could be very dangerous for him to do.
Running in the USFL is the same as running in the NFL.
No, not at all.
No.
So
it's funny you mentioned that, Jorge, about the running backs and stuff, because that's actually been in the news this week. All the running backs talking about basically how NFL teams are disrespecting them and not giving them contracts and all that. Ever since the big name running backs didn't sign their franchise or didn't get new deals off of their franchise tag by the Monday deadline.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, and it's been a trend for a couple of years. The running back position is kind of going the way of the fullback, where it'll soon be extinct. I feel like if you have a running back, it's going to be to give another piece of protection, a sixth man to protect the quarterback, because the NFL is turning into a passing league. And as a quarterback, you to have success in the NFL, and this has been the case for the longest time, unless you're a special circumstance like a Randall Cunningham or a Michael Vick, a running quarterback is not going to have success in the NFL. The defensive players are way too fast. Even the linemen are way too fast, and running quarterbacks just get eaten alive. And they don't have a long lifespan. I mean, just look at RG3. He's a prime example of that. But the running back position, I think, is starting to show signs where it is old school football, and it's not something that you'll see anymore. Short of someone turning a football team upside down on its head and starts running the wing T offense, I just don't see running backs having a long lifespan. Because, I mean, how many teams go under center versus how many teams go out of the gun, and really, I mean, they utilize their running backs as a slot receiver, as a screen receiver. They use their running backs as an extra protection, as play action, but they don't. It's rare. Out of the 32 teams in the NFL, you don't really see much production from running backs compared to the days of, you can go as far back as Barry Sanders and Emmitt Smith, all the way up to the days of LaDainian Tomlinson from the 2000s. But I mean, I think the days of the running back position in the NFL are numbered, and soon they will go the way of the fullback and just be a specialty position versus an on-field staple.
Well, and really, how many teams have that one dominant running back? Most of the teams, they're going to running back by committee. And it is because it's been notoriously a position that after 30, you just fall off. So right at 28 years old or whatever, these teams aren't going to give these players these 5-6 year deals for $10-15 million a year, because they know after 2 years they're pretty much going to lose that running back, lose the productivity. So they're making the better business decisions for the teams.
Yep. So looking back at the stats, last year, Josh Jacobs carried the NFL, averaging 97.2 yards per game. Right. Next closest to Saquon Barkley, 82 yards. Now, 5 years ago, that those are 97 was an average number, right? It's Brian that's buffering. He's making me think I'm slowing down here. You would have running backs 5 years ago that would average over 100 yards per game. It's slowly decreasing. Josh Jacobs through the bell curve off a little bit with an overly productive year last year, but on average, they're cranking out under 90 yards per game. And so that just goes, I mean, the numbers don't lie. That goes to back up what you guys are saying, is that the running back position is starting to go the way of the dinosaur. And everything is going to be about, the receivers, the tight ends. You're going to start using that running back for extra protection for the QB for more time, to get the ball in the air. You don't need anybody that can run at that point, right?
Right.
You put one of your offensive linemen in, for the extra protection as the running back, right? And so then why would you sign a guy to a multi-year, multi-million-dollar deal if you can just put a big body in that spot? So I get where the NFL running backs are coming from, but as the game is, metamorphosizing into a different game, they can't really be upset about the fact that their position is going away. I mean, they should have made it more valuable. They should have done more things to make it a more elusive position, a more, essential in the game, if you will.
Yeah, I mean, and then you have there's not like it's kind of a double-edged sword for a running back, because you can be the small shifty guy that nobody can catch, but when you get caught by a defensive lineman or a defensive end like a JJ Watt, for example, in his prime, you're gonna get destroyed if you're a small shifty running back, or you can be a big bruiser. And just plow your way through people, but that shortens your lifespan to 5 years tops. And I'm going to use the Cowboys here as an example. So look at Marion Barber. He was a big bruiser. Yep. He lasted 5 years with the Cowboys, and then he fell off completely. Then after that, who replaced him? DeMarco Murray. He was with them from 2011 to 2014. Same thing. He did not last very long. He got injured a lot. But when he was on the field, he made an impact. And then you look at their most recent one who's just been released, Ezekiel Elliott. He was there from 2016 to 2022. Not as much of a bruiser, but 6 years. And yeah, his lifespan his shelf life has expired. So those have been the last three main running backs for the Cowboys, and all of them, have had a very limited shelf life that has led them to no longer be as productive as they were when they first came on the scene. Like you're always going to have that one running back that's just going to come out and break down, the walls and have that breakout season. Then he goes into his sophomore season, and then he's going to have a slump, and then he may have a little bit of another peak in his third season, and then after that, it starts to decline. And that's when coaches have to make the decision, like, do I use this running back as a blocker? Do I use him as a receiver? Like, what are other ways that I can figure this out before they're like, you know what, we got to get a new fresh blood in there, get a new kid that's going to be more explosive and hope for the best.
Yep.
And that's where, going back to these alternative football leagues, I think the running backs are the ones that have it the hardest, because you got to remember that, they have just spent, 8 to 10 to 12 weeks playing football at that position. And, they have a month or two to be able to heal their body before they go into the most physical form of their position in the NFL. That's a lot for the human body to take. And I mean, respect to the running backs that want to be running backs, but I just don't see like we've been saying, it's that it doesn't look good for the future of a running back, and that goes all the way down to college running backs, and they'll still be valuable there in college, but
Yep.
they won't get the same deals that they will in the NFL that they were hoping for. They may hope for more money from NAL deals than NFL deals.
Yeah. So, talking about alternative football leagues, I do have to retract one of my previous statements. It does look like at least Mark Thompson, the offensive MVP of the USFL, is getting a tryout with the Giants, and Pittsburgh Maulers linebacker is getting a tryout with the Giants. However, that's about the most news that I'm seeing as far as the USFL players getting a tryout, other than everybody wanting to talk about Magoo, which that's cool. But I mean, there's other players like, one of the issues that we've had with the USFL. Hey, Rose, you combed your hair for us, so she's showing you a little bit of love there. But one of the things that we've had a problem with the USFL is that everything is secretive. A couple of weeks ago, Brian and I actually broke down the finances, right? That, yeah, the XFL did show a $60 million loss last year, but they showed that they actually made money too. And they showed how much money and from where they made all of their revenue from. The USFL is real secretive about it. They said that they turned a profit of what, 7 million, I think it was, something like that. Or at least last year. I don't know that those numbers have come out yet this year. But they're not saying how they got it. Like, you have to really dig deep to find out like information about the television contracts that they have, the advertising contracts, player salaries, and all these other different things to try and figure out roughly, what they made. And 90% of their income is coming from the television deals that they have with Fox and everybody.
Yep. It ain't coming from attendance, so
no, and I doubt that it ever will. But again, and I'm not trying to bash the USFL. I'm hopeful that they can figure out the formula for success and help these players that are trying to get an opportunity to get into the into the NFL, whether it be a running back, receiver, quarterback, tight end, defensive player, whatever, right? Anybody that's trying to get to that next step. I'm hopeful that the USFL can get them to that point. But kind of like the XFL and their commitment to not advertise, the USFL is real tight-lipped about talking about opportunities that they're creating for these players. The whole purpose for them being there, right? So it's counterintuitive. Like, you should be shouting from the rooftops. We've got 23 players trying out. We've got 37. The XFL isn't even trying. And like we talked about, they've got, arguably 100 players trying out for the NFL. Those are kinds of things that the USFL is probably going to need to tweak, right? And just like the XFL is going to need to tweak that advertising budget a little bit and actually maybe spend something this next year. The USFL could do wonders for themselves if they would start showcasing more than just 300 headlines about Alex Magoo and him trying out for the Packers. Because I'm looking at it now, and I mean, there's all these different updates about Alex Magoo. That's fine. Mr. Magoo, put your glasses on. I don't care, right? Let's talk about somebody else. So, and that's coming from a Packers fan. So now that we've, beat that horse to death, let's transition into the NFL, because we're talking, and much like running backs disappearing, so did Brian. What are your predictions for this next NFL season for the Packers?
For the Packers, if they end up third in the division, I think that'd be a good start. I don't have high expectations for the Green Bay Packers or for the NFC North in general. I mean, if last season was any indication, the NFC North was obviously the weakest division in the NFC. Whereas I remember when it used to be the NFC East, that now has become one of the strongest divisions. So it's going through that ebb and flow where divisions are starting to shift power, and the power is going to the NFC East. I mean, you saw the Cowboys; they made a run, but nobody listened to me. But I said from experience, Mike McCarthy can't beat a San Francisco team in the playoffs, and sure enough, he did not. Um, but yeah, I as much as I know that the 49ers were in this. It was the 49ers in the Super Bowl this year, right, for the NFC. Um, between the West and the East, it's gonna be between them. I don't see NFC South making much noise. I don't see NFC North making much noise. If I had to pick two teams that get to the play if I had to pick a team, honestly, that has the biggest shot, I'm gonna go with the dark horse pick, and it's not just because my boy's playing for them, but I think it's gonna be the Lions that are gonna be the team to beat in the North, and it's gonna take everybody by surprise. The Packers obviously have a lot of rebuilding to do. The Bears are the Bears. I mean, they're constantly trying to figure it out. And as long as the Vikings have Kirk Cousins, they're not going to do much. The best that they'll do is a wild card. But I don't see the Packers doing much this year. Maybe next year, after Jordan Love has had a full season of on field, assuming he doesn't get hurt, of course.
Yeah.
But I think they are. It's let's reload and move to 2024 or 2024 2025 because even David Bakhtiari has said, yeah, we're rebuilding. So when you have your own offensive lineman saying, yeah, I mean, this is a rebuilding year, and you're a veteran offensive lineman, that there is some doubt in the locker room behind what can happen this season and the realistic view of what the Packers look like. I do think that it's going to be, be in the East between the Cowboys and the Eagles again. I don't see the Washington football team doing very much. And I forget who the other team is there, which goes to show you how much I think that they're going to do.
Yep.
And then
real quick, apparently Jackie didn't like you talking about the Cowboys there.
I mean, I was being nice about the Cowboys for once, but if she doesn't like me being nice about the Cowboys, I'll go back to saying how badly they suck. So
I think she wants you to talk about how bad the Giants are.
She wants me to talk about the Giants. Well, the Giants, I mean, the Giants are the Giants. I mean, ever since they lost Eli Manning, yeah, they're not going to be. They're going to be they're going to be fighting for last place in the division with the Washington football team, and I refuse to call them the Commanders. I'm sorry, that moniker belongs to San Antonio.
It 100% does.
And they should have come up with. They should have been the Red Tails, in my opinion. But that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
But the Washington football team and the Giants are going to duke it out for last place in the division, which could mean a wild card spot for one of them. However, as far as the Packers go, I see them being third in the division. The Bears being fourth.
Yeah. So I'm going to agree with you about the Cowboys carrying their division, but I think it's going to be the Giants in second place and the Eaglets in third. And of course, the Washington football team probably easily in like seventh or something, which is impossible, but they'll figure it out. In our division, I would be okay with third. I don't think we're going to have that good of a season, honestly, because it's going to be too much time transitioning into this new era with new, just everything new. So I think we're really going to struggle. I have a feeling that the Bears are probably going to be the dark horse in our league, and I think that they may actually, unfortunately, surprise us. A lot of that's going to be dependent, though, on how smart Detroit is in this offseason. If they sign a certain someone, right, a certain kicker,
Mr. Automatic,
guarantee victories for them, then it's probably going to be Detroit, Chicago, Minnesota, and Green Bay fighting for last place.
And full disclaimer, we're not just saying this because he was a San Antonio Brahma or because, you know, he's my friend or anything like that. Like, legitimately, he is. No, I mean, I at least I'm not. Like, I legitimately think he is an NFL caliber kicker to the likes of Adam Vinatieri and, you know, Mason Crosby and you know, legends like that have a leg that's reliable. You know, we saw that in action already. You know, he has the record for kicking the longest field goal in Lumen Field, which is an NFL field in Seattle. And he wasn't even playing for an NFL team.
Right.
You know, I've heard he's kicked in the Detroit Lions practice 60 plus yard field goals, which has him in first place in that competition. So he really does have the ability to make a difference in the NFL for the team that signs him, which, you know, it's looking like Detroit is going to be the one that signs him. They're already selling his jersey and giving him pictures with his uniform. So, you know, the importance of the kicker in the NFL, I think, is really going to be on display this year, which is where the running back, you know, I feel like the kicker and the running back in terms of importance have kind of shifted, whereas the running back is going down. The importance of the kicker is going up. People aren't going to respect that. But how many times has a kicker pulled you out of a tough situation, you know? Whether that's pinning an opponent deep in their territory after a kickoff, or kicking that clutch field goal right before halftime when you're going to get the ball back, or kicking that clutch field goal at the end of a game. You need a kicker that has that and does not fold under pressure. And I do think that John Parker Romo is the guy that is going to be, he's going to be the Kurt Warner story. I feel like, when it comes to, you know, making it in the NFL and having longevity there. Again, I'm not just saying that because he's a friend and he played for San Antonio in the XFL. Like, he legitimately is one of the better kickers out there, you know, right now.
His record speaks for itself. 16-17 on the season. He kicked several over 50 yards. If it wasn't for that ill-timed timeout, I'd love to go back and review that because I'm almost sure it didn't come in time. But if it wasn't for that would have been a game-winning drive for San Antonio, and it would have excelled us into the playoffs, where we would have gone back to San Antonio and won that championship and been the XFL 2023 champions. I know it. Okay,
but you know, honestly, I do think that ice was a blessing in disguise, because you better believe that he's gone back and worked on being iced throughout training with Detroit. You know, that's something that they're aware of.
Absolutely.
You know, and that is something that he has constantly been practicing, so it doesn't happen again. So because the feeling of that, you know, is horrible. It is horrible for a kicker to feel that way. You lost your team season, or you feel like you didn't lose your team season, but you feel like you did because it was all dependent on your leg. But there's a whole other bunch of factors that go into that, and I've said this before, but you know, I heard Jack Cohn went up to him after the kick and said, "Hey man, it was on me. I should have got you closer." So Yeah, I think that's why I feel like Detroit has the ability, if they're able to keep games close, and really leverage their weapons on offense and defense, that the special teams is going to make the difference. And the special teams being led by the kicker, if they sign the right one, which they have him in their grasp, as long as they don't make Detroit style decisions, I feel like they have the opportunity to lead the division and go into the playoffs as maybe a number 3 or number 4 seed.
So, Detroit style decisions leads us to our next segment, and it's going to pretty much be our last segment, but this is one that I know Jackie's been waiting for. It's a little fun segment, and you get to see it firsthand now, that we like to call Do Better. Okay?
Yeah.
I specifically have a bone to pick right now with the San Antonio Gunslingers front office. Okay. I'm a season ticket holder. I've said it before, right? I've done my part to invest in the team and be supportive and do all the things, go down on the field, meet the players, tell them great job, tell the coach great job, all while wearing my San Antonio Talons shirt, right? And just making sure that it's known that they're appreciated and they are supported, right? I've got 2 tickets this season. Normally I have 3. I dropped down to 2. But I reached out to the San Antonio Gunslingers organization this week to ask them to help me out because I need 2 additional tickets for my 2 other daughters so we could have daddy-daughter day while mommy's out doing a bunch of stuff for PTA stuff, right? Said, hey guys, what can you do for me? Season ticket holder, blah, 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 laid out the whole deal, whatever. They came back and said, sure, we can help you out, SAJ. We're going to give you 2 season tickets pop. Keep in mind, I paid $25 for the seats that I have for the season. And I understand getting a little bit of a discount and everything. And I could understand if maybe they were going to say like $30, $35, something like that. But they want to charge $65 to put my daughters in the section across from me, not even in the same section as me, not even in the same row. They want to put 2 of my daughters in a separate section, a couple of rows away from me, higher up, right? For a season ticket holder. Is that really how you want to treat your season ticket holders? When you know for a fact that you've got people paying $10 a ticket and coming and sitting wherever they want in the Freeman Coliseum. You've got people that are paying $10 and walking down and sitting in those precious little booths that you guys have on the rails. I know because I've gone over there. Okay. I'm not one of those booth ticket holders. And I've gone over into those booths because nobody's stopping you from doing anything you want in the Freeman Coliseum. You guys need to do better. Okay. If this is how you're going to treat your season ticket holders, it is not going to surprise anybody that your organization fails. And it's going to be because you don't understand customer service, you don't understand loyalty, and you don't understand how to treat people who have been committed to your organization for longer than you've been there. So San Antonio Gunslingers ticket holder or ticket salespeople and the organization, do better. Done with you. Okay, I'm done. So that being the case, let me just say this: if this does not work out for this Sunday or this Saturday, and I have to sneak my kids in, which I gladly will because I've snuck into places before, not worried about it. But
it's not like they don't have the extra seats. Come on now.
Exactly. Well, you've gone with me. You've seen the empty spots. Okay. And Mr. Guns Up. I hate that dude. God, I hate that dude. Do better. Anyways, I will sneak my kids in. But if I have to do that, if I have to resort to that level just to make sure that my children who are not adults and who still need adult supervision have to be near adult supervision, every one of them gets, one of those infected hair pimples right on your butt crack that just hurts and hurts and hurts and hurts. I hope they get 3 of them. 3 of them. Take that. Okay. I'm good.
Yeah, no, I'm 100% on board with you. And this goes for any sports organization. When you have a parent calling in saying, hey, I need an extra ticket for my child, anything that is not, let me sit them next to you, let me move you so that you can sit next to your children, is that okay, is not acceptable. I can, if someone told me that, I had 2 season tickets and I mean, this goes, and even for my beloved Brahmas, I have season tickets, and if I needed to get an extra season ticket for my 3-year-old son, and they're like, yeah, we can, I'm in section 108, but we can get him in section 137 on the other side of the stand. You're gonna put a 3-year-old on 137, really? Oh wait, like
he can come hang out 134 with us.
It's one of those things where like it's common sense. It's not even at that point customer service. It's common sense. Again, that goes for any sports organization. If you have a parent calling in saying, I need an extra ticket for my child, do what you need to do to make sure that parent is sitting next to their children or child. Don't put the child by themselves somewhere else away from the parent and say that'll be a premium price because it's a nice seat. No, move the season ticket holder, move the parent to the child if you have to, but don't say, I'll give your child seats 3 sections over, 10 rows up. And you guys can just figure it out. No, that's unacceptable. I would be upset. I don't blame you for being upset. That's not even customer service. That's common sense.
Yeah, I might be a little bit frosty. So that being the case, we're going into the last week of the the IFL, and the second to the last week of the NAL, which may be the final week of the NAL. But let's see what's going to happen here. Brian, any predictions? What do you got?
I mean, for NAL, gunslingers have been so unimpressive lately that I'm not expecting a win out of them. They've just played like crap. So,
well, and we definitely talked about it
if they get a win, I'd be pleasantly surprised.
Okay, they're at this point in second place, fighting for their playoff lives. Now, I know it's weird to say in a 4-team league, but they are fighting for their playoff.
Well, they're just they got to fight just to get into a rhythm,
Yeah. Well, and
they got to get into a rhythm and get to where your quarterback's not missing 20 passes a game.
Mm-hmm. But this is their last game of the season, so they have to win this.
Yep.
They have no choice. They have to win this, and then they have to pray that some people lose out, right? So we're playing Carolina Cobras this week, and then Carolina will be playing Jacksonville next week. That's going to be potentially our ticket in to the playoffs. So things have to break their way.
Which is funny because Gunslingers are going to end up playing 12 games. Jacksonville is going to end up playing 13, which I guess is what happens when you got 2 teams that just, bow out of the league halfway through the season. But you're going to have some weird, games played between them.
Yeah.
I think the Gunslingers are going to make the playoffs but
maybe.
So it's just going to be, unless they're only taking 2 teams, they will. Maybe 3. But
it's probably going to be top 3.
I could see that. That's what I could see. And then, 1 seed Jacksonville would get the bye to the championship game. Yep. But I just want to see the Gunslingers just kind of get back on track. Whatever's wrong with Nelson, or if something's wrong with them, give them short passes. Those deep balls ain't working for them. So, get short passes and get it, and just get into a rhythm, because they need to win. They need to play good.
Yep. So, Jorge, any thoughts or anything before we kick over to the IFL and then sign off?
I think that the team that doesn't exist but still has a record that is possible playoff bound is going to make some noise. I mean, like I said, I don't really follow the NAL, but knowing that, sorry for all the NAL folks out there, but no, I hope the best for San Antonio. I do think that probably West Texas is probably going to be phoning it in now that they know that they have greener pastures ahead of them. I honestly, I hope the best for San Antonio, but I I'm going to be honest, I likely won't be following.
Yeah. Well, and Orlando's probably going to do the same thing.
You're with the gunslingers like Jason is with the Spurs.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, part of it is I think I've always had a thing with arena football, kind of like same with college. Like, I never got the full college experience, and I obviously never got to play arena football. So I've always had kind of that whole like I should be there, but I'm not. So it's always been difficult for me to watch arena football just because it never happened for me when I knew it could have and it should have. So it's just hard to watch.
Yeah. Well, and it's a different game too, right?
Yeah, so it is a different game. It is a different game.
For a football purist,
yeah,
it is a harder game to watch.
Yeah. So no, it is. And yeah, it's I mean, that's just what it is. I don't really watch arena ball just because now I'm too old. I definitely would not be saying I should be down there. But 10 years ago, yeah, I was saying that should be me.
You say you're too old, but Pierre Turner of the San Antonio Talons is still playing on the Gunslingers organization. And he's got to be my age. So
this is true.
What position does he play?
Running back.
Yeah, I played.
He also plays some defense too. So
offensive linemen don't. I mean, I've had surgery on my knees. So yeah.
Yeah, you're done.
I'm done. I'm done.
You're done. You're done. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Gunslingers do better. I already told you, do better. Hopefully they are able to turn their slide around and get this last win, help their playoff chances, and then we can see them in the potential 2 versus 3, eventually versus 1 championship kind of structure game, whatever. Going over the IFL, we're definitely pulling for Frisco. Not that Frisco needs the win, but they do have Massachusetts nipping at their heels. And so it's going to be important that they get this win this week and make sure that they seal that game. And then we have Arizona that is potentially in the same situation. They're at 11-4. Bay Area's at 10-5. There could be a tie, and that's going to come down to the conference wins, right? That could determine how the playoffs break out. So these games still matter, right? There's still plenty of action going on in the IFL, and just from a production standpoint alone, if you guys don't have anything to do, tune in, watch some of these games, right? It's going to be on YouTube, but these look like professional broadcast games, not like high school AV club covering the parking lot. I mean, I'm telling you, the production value is so much better.
And I'm gonna go against you guys. I'm not going for Frisco. I'm going for Massachusetts for 2 reasons. One, Frisco is near a specific city in Texas that can just suck it. And I'll let you guys decide which one that one is. And then
we have no idea.
Massachusetts has Anthony Russo, who is a Brahmas quarterback. Yeah. So I got to support our people, not the people in Dallas. I'm sorry, not Dallas.
Not Dallas. Well, it's close enough. That's going to be important, right? Because we already know that XFL has a pipeline from the IFL. Yeah. This could be Russo's chance to plug back in. I know he took the job probably because, he needed a job and, he didn't have a spot as a quarterback in the XFL. So he took what he could get.
And the Brahmas need a quarterback because we just got rid of Jawan Pass. And I think, I don't know where Jack Cohn is. He kind of just fell off the face of the earth. And Reid Sinnett is probably our best bet at this moment, but I don't know who a QB 2 or 3 is. Getting rid of
KB,
passes.
Baby, KB.
Man, my man's hanging out in Hawaii playing Madden, man. Like
and making millions more off of him talking about his NFL quarterback experience and how to make you a better quarterback in the NFL.
In Madden.
Yeah. It's, oh my God. Yeah. That is like, the windfall of the century right there, to be able to be behind a guy like Aaron Rodgers, get opportunities, making millions of dollars, literally doing nothing. And then your one big chance to show the NFL, hey, you guys passed on me and you shouldn't have. Then he gets 3 broken ribs and he's like, I don't need this, man. I'm gonna go make more money somewhere else.
Go back to YouTube.
That's just the best, dude. So anyways, yeah, some big action in the IFL this weekend. We definitely want to make sure that Brian and I will be supporting the Frisco Fighters. Meanwhile, we'll keep you updated on the Massachusetts Pirates. Maybe they can flip the script and maybe they can take it away from Frisco and make Arlington Jimmy cry. We'll see what happens. But again, plenty of football action this weekend still. Keep tuned to your sets as we get ready to go into the last week of the IFL and into the playoffs and the last 2 weeks of the NAL. And there's still plenty of news coming from the XFL. We hadn't even talked about it on this show yet. But was it Vegas or Orlando that got a new head coach? That was
Vegas.
Okay, so Vegas got a new head coach, and we did not talk about it, and I apologize. But that's a former NFL assistant coach who's getting an opportunity to show his chops as a head coach.
Dr. Anthony Blevins.
Yes. So it's not just a league of opportunities for players, but it's also for coaching staff and you name it, right? The XFL is specifically an opportunity for everybody, right? We just got done watching some of the highlights. Well, some of the published clips from some of the camps that they had, and they're still going to be there. There's plenty more coming, right? And we've still got the NFL. I'm sorry, the ending up towards the end of the year. There's going to be a bunch of different community events going on here in San Antonio. We've got some. Those are fan driven. We've had a few in St. Louis that were team driven. I know that they're going to be doing things in, was it Orlando? There's some city that they're doing some more team driven events to raise awareness about the team, get the players connected with the fans there locally and everything. But the XFL is starting. I mean, they're still continuing, right? Brian and I talk about it all the time. The XFL is like the gift that keeps on giving. We always have something to talk about every week, and so we're thankful for that. Can't wait till we get closer to the season, right? The NFL is almost now going to be that filler to keep us entertained until we can get to the XFL, because it's gotten that good.
And one last thing I wanted to add as far as XFL and NFL, that the XFL has already done better from a personnel standpoint. It has exposed. Am I able to curse on this?
Why not?
Okay, all right. So NFL needs to do better because their bullshit Rooney Rule has been exposed by the XFL. Reggie Barlow, Hines Ward, Dr. Anthony Blevins, Rod Woodson, Terrell Buckley. That's 5 out of 8 coaches that are minorities, that are head coaches in the XFL. That is more. That I think that matches, if not more, than the number of minority head coaches in the NFL. So NFL, do better because your bullshit Rooney Rule doesn't work.
You heard it from the man right here. Okay. That's right. two do-betters you got, Texans talking football. Okay.
That's NFL. Hey, that's a double do better right there.
Yep. Discount double do better. I'm just going to leave it at that.
Discount double do better.
Okay. NFL, do better. Hire the right people for the job. You know what you need to do. I don't even have to say it. Jorge already covered it, right? Gunslingers, do better. You know what you did wrong. Fix it. Okay. That being the case, guys, it has been an absolute pleasure. Jorge, why don't you tell everybody where they can find you on your social medias and everything?
Yeah, just look for Viva Texas on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, YouTube. I'll be you'll see my crazy antics on there. Yeah, and I hope y'all get a laugh out of all the crazy stuff that I'm doing on there. And there may be a future partnership with a specific beaver in my future. So Who knows?
And that's
Jorge, like I said, thanks for joining us, jumping on, especially considering I was having the internet hamster issues and disconnects and stuff. So, really appreciate you joining us, man. It's always a blast.
Thanks for having me tonight,
appreciate you coming,
fellas.
Definitely, man. We appreciate you coming and hanging out, guys. That is going to be it for us. We're going to try and do this fancy outro, and then we are out. See you guys. Horns forward.
Deuces.
Later, guys.